Welcome to Man versus Machine. Bradley Stalder, Ryan Reynolds with you tonight. We're going to be giving you the vibes. We're going to be giving you the winning ways. Week 15 and beyond. If you're one of the people watching tonight, you've been either following us the whole season, you've been taking our advice, crushing it with our insight, or you have made the fantasy playoffs. You want to know, you're getting to that point. There's some tough matchups, maybe some of the players that have gotten you to the dance or you drafted early. You need to make the decision. Am I going to start my stud? Am I going to put him on the bench? We need to make those decisions. And tonight we're going to discuss the elite players that we need to decide we're putting them in the lineup, set it, forget it, or are we going to be bold enough to bench them in our fantasy playoffs? Ryan Reynolds, Bradley Stalder with you tonight. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm good, man. You've had a long day of fathering, as you told me before we went on the air. It's 9 p.m. in New Jersey, in the great state of New Jersey. I'm wearing sunglasses. There's drones everywhere. There's apparently an Iranian mothership. But you know what really matters, Bradley, for us and the good people listening right now? It's money-making season. It's the fantasy playoffs. For myself, I try to play in as many, mid-stakes home leagues as possible. I've made a little over $6,000 in most points so far this week. So that's money in the bank. That means I'll be profitable in season long this year. Looking forward to grinding out some more over the next few weeks.
Yes, once those best ball mania monies hit tomorrow for at least the bare minimums is going to be so nice. I advanced 22%, so a little bit above average. It was fine. And it was great. We're going to have a good time just riding out the fantasy playoffs, seeing how those teams do and seeing how the DK teams do as well, because if you remember, Underdog didn't come to Michigan until late spring. So I got a delayed start in the best ball mania streets, whatnot, but we still have a lot of fun drafting. We're also going to take some time to talk about Fast Draft later on today. It's a great platform. I've been doing some content over there as well. Fast Draft Fantasy. If you don't know, Matt Kelly, Billy Muzio, and the team have worked very hard to put together that app. So check it out, fastdraft.app. And if you use promo code STACK, gets you a 100% deposit match up to $25. That's promo code STACK, STACK. So check that out. Ryan, the consensus 102 in drafts this year was CD Lamb, and his advance rate was about average. The average advance rate is like 16% or so. His advance rate was 15%. And so not bad. It was within the margin. You weren't let down by drafting CD Lamb, but you weren't buoyed or boosted by drafting Lamb either. But we're looking at this Dallas team that is very hit or miss. They got into a shootout with Cincinnati a little bit. It was a 47-point game in week 14. But this was the first time that we've seen a top 12 week from CD Lamb since week 8. And in fact, this is the 2-game stretch that we've seen the fewest targets from Lamb over the course of the season. 6 and 7 targets. For a player that you drafted at 102, I know you're probably not benching CD Lamb, but there might be other players that you are more excited about playing in a game where Dallas could roll over Carolina. There's at least a wide range of outcomes in this Carolina Panthers game. How are you approaching CD Lamb?
I faded CD Lamb entering draft season. I was below consensus on him all year. I took Jamar Chase ahead of him basically every time. That was with Dak Prescott in mind. With Cooper Rush in this coming matchup, Carolina, the problem with the reason I faded Lamb is everyone can over game plan for CD Lamb. Carolina, you have J.C. Horn that can lock him down. The Buccaneers matchup has tremendous upside. They have a terrible pass defense, but guess what Todd Bowles is going to do? Todd Bowles is going to bracket CD Lamb more than he bracketed probably anyone else they played all year. And the Eagles game, I don't think he's going to do anything against Vic Fangio's defense. So you obviously have to start him just from volume alone, just because obviously, your first round pick, the guy's one of the best receivers in the league, but my expectations would be mild at best.
In week 10, CD Lamb 6 for 21. He was the wide receiver 50 in that game against Philly. So in the fantasy championship, there are at least legitimate questions about playing CD Lamb that final week. The Cooper Rush experiment is not going great. It's not going great. It's clear that Rush is just a backup quarterback. And yes, he's at least getting some volume to CD Lamb, but it's not enough that we're confident that Lamb will give us a game tilting week, a Jamar Chase ceiling type of week. That's the limiting factor of Cooper Rush, which is why we have to be a little bit, we have to consider other options, at least if, CeeDee Lamb is more of a flex play than a set it forget it wide receiver one.
Agreed. Sounds crazy to say it, but agreed.
Another player that was drafted very, very high, Tyreek Hill, was the consensus 103 in fantasy drafts. And we've talked about him time and again in this show, but he's strung together 2 straight games of top 12 performances. 3 of the last 4 have been top 15. He's earned a season high 14 targets against the Jets. But Ryan, I think a couple things. One, the Jets defense since Robert Saleh has left has just disintegrated. Like, it is not the same coached defense. It's not the same team. The lockdown, they were also without Sauce Gardner. Sauce expected to play week 15, but you've got Houston, you've got San Francisco and Cleveland. Like, this, none of them are gimme matchups. And if we've seen, the oscillation of targets week to week for Tyreek Hill, look, sometimes you can sell in the playoffs, depends on your league rules. Like, this is almost a sell high of Tyreek Hill in your dynasty leagues, in whatever leagues that you roster Hill and you have the trade ability. Like, this is one of those savvy moments where look, Tyreek Hill is he is 30 years old, coming off a down year. This is the time to sell, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially with him, like his entire game's built on speed and, otherworldly athleticism. So once Father Time strikes with that, he's going to take a massive dip. It's not like DeAndre Hopkins can still be a useful player because he's a contested catch player. Hill's going to take a major drop. As far as his matchups coming up, Houston's pass rush is going to have a major advantage against Miami. So what I'm thinking there is quick passes are the path there. You're probably not going to get a stop and go because they're not going to have a lot of time to get those kind of things off. So think that's more of a volume game if he gets there. San Francisco, I think that's interesting. And, we've been talking about this game for weeks in this facet. Week 17 in Cleveland, December 29th, decent chance like no one's throwing the ball because of weather in that game.
Look, I haven't run the weather reports yet. I haven't looked that far ahead, but, we know what the weather in Cleveland can be at that time. We have 3 other wide receivers that were also drafted in that 103, 104, 105 slot. And Jamar Chase, of course, the king, 51% advance rate in Best Ball Mania. 84% of teams had Saquon and Jamar Chase ended up advancing. Like, imagine you're one of that 16% that didn't. Like, like, how bad would it must have been injuries that to the quarterback position that must have tanked the team, because if you were starting Chase and then Barkley, you were sitting pretty. But you were talking off air about the leverage that differentiation has with a Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley start, and then having some different players. How are you, looking at how the fantasy playoffs play out, given the different combos that may follow a Chase Barkley start?
Yeah, I have a ton of Chase. I was, I think I had him 3rd overall, so I took him a ton. And like we talked about, I have a team with Chase, Barkley, Derrick Henry, Joe Burrow, and I'm curious what your thoughts on that are. And like I told you, I have T Higgins on it too, but if I can get that far enough, because I don't know how many people have all 4 of them. But like you said, everyone who has Barkley and Chase got through. So I'm curious what you're thinking there for myself.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that, barring last week's, wild, terrible outlier game for T. Higgins. In the games where Higgins and Chase have played, it's been equal, if not in favor of Higgins in terms of target share. So the chance that T. Higgins outproduces Jamar Chase is not zero. It's a significant, I don't know, outproduces 35, 40%. That's a significant amount. Especially for a player where we've seen the ceiling games from him, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 8, wide receiver 5, in just, 8 games this year, 3 top 8 performances. And this is a Bengals team that has to win out and get lucky to make any playoff run. Like everything has to go right. They're probably not making the playoffs, but they need Chase and they need Higgins to make it work. And maybe it's Chase that, Tennessee tries to block up or Cleveland tries to block up. That's what Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago did. We were expecting a massive game from T. Higgins in the Pittsburgh matchup, and he was modest, even though the game score was wild, because Mike Tomlin came out later and said, like, Shaq's got fouls to give. Like they were intentionally trying to take T. Higgins out of the game. And I think that with Jamar Chase's pedigree, teams may turn the needle toward him to end the season as they're trying to make, especially Denver and Cleveland. Those are some tough secondaries, tough defenses to play against. So that's how I'm playing. I don't think it's a zero. I think it's that T. Higgins double tap along with Chase and Burrow makes it interesting that you could win either way.
I'm pulling for it, pal. I hope it gets there.
Well, Justin Jefferson also had, a very, very large game along with Jordan Addison. I don't know if there's been enough play from Sam Darnold to reignite the MVP talk, but he's played very well over the last couple of weeks when we thought like he's down and out, maybe he's turning into a pumpkin, and Darnold puts up a massive fantasy performance, and then Jefferson 7 for 132 and 2 touchdowns when his last touchdown came in week 8. There was talk about getting him the ball in the red zone, in the end zone, finishing as wide receiver 4, but he gets Chicago, which is a tougher defensive matchup. But we've seen, he was 2 for 27 against Chicago last time. Seattle could turn into a shootout, and Green Bay in Minnesota could also become a very interesting matchup. You're of course starting Justin Jefferson, but maybe the pivot goes to you're starting Jefferson, but are you riding the wave with Jordan Addison as well? Because of the increased targets, the increased production, we've seen multiple 130-yard performances from Addison over the last couple of weeks. Sam Darnold looking down the field, and if teams are focused on Jefferson, that's left Addison. So is Addison a comfortable flex play rest of the way?
It's a great question. I love it, especially because I had a very good week in DFS last week. I was, on Josh Allen, played Justin Jefferson a ton. If Jordan Addison didn't have the game he had, I might be wearing a gold chain right now with how much money I made last week. But to your point, yeah, I think right now, I've said this a few times. Sam Darnold's playing his best football of his career over the last 3 weeks. He was good early, middled out from the middle of the season. He's been slinging it. He was great last week. And Addison, this is not the first monster game he's had. He's had a few, and like you said with the Bears in particular, the Bears there were times where they were literally treating Justin Jefferson as like a punt gunner, literally like lining up a defender on each of his shoulders and just carrying the whole way. Where Addison had a good game against there. So in the overwhelming majority of situations, I'm just plugging in Addison and letting it rip.
You love to see it. The increased targets, increased down. Addison's the downfield winner. That best ball play. I wish I had. We knew in the offseason that there was probably going to be some drama surrounding Jordan Addison, given the speeding issues, the reckless driving, blah blah blah. That definitely drove his ADP down. But in terms of best ball, these are some big winning weeks that we don't want to be missing out on. So consider that as you're moving forward. One player I want to point out, and you're in Jersey. The drones have gotten a good view of Breece Hall and his knee issues. There's no way that Breece Hall comes back for the fantasy playoffs, right?
I mean, I wouldn't put him back in. I mean, what's the point? If anything, putting him back in, he plays better than Davis and Allen, who are, that's a pretty good combo, honestly. Where's the upside? Winning hurts you, so he wouldn't see the field for me. Then again, it's the Jets, so who knows what they're going to do?
Yeah, a 10% advance rate for Breece Hall. I'm surprised it's that high, frankly.
Yeah.
The Jets have seen good things come out of Braylon Allen. They've seen good things from Isaiah Davis. I'll talk about Isaiah Davis a little bit more later, but Breece Hall is one of those players that he's so good, but he's been hurt, and maybe he needs a change of scenery if this is not the regime that drafted him. And he's underperformed, dealing with these injuries. Maybe there's another team that is looking to acquire Breece Hall coming out of this offseason. What's your thought on that, Ryan?
I love that. That's sharp because, again, like, if they keep Rodgers, you probably keep Hall. But if you don't keep Rodgers, you need assets you're rebuilding. I would trade him. I'm not sure who off the top of my head, but I love that call. That's great. Maybe even San Francisco if CMC's done. That would be interesting.
Ooh, that would be fun.
Yeah,
that would be a lot of fun. Near the end of the first round, we essentially got a lot of duds. Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison, mostly due to performance from Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison. Puka Nacua dealt with a lot of the injuries right at the middle of the season. He's had massive weeks, but it was just too little too late. And A.J. Brown has also dealt with the injuries, but as of late, the target volume, so the number of targets has gone down. The target rate is still very high. A.J. Brown, I think, number 2 in target share in the NFL among all wide receivers. 33% is that's alpha dog type of target share. But when your pass volume is very low, 33% of nothing is still nothing. So that's real tough. Even with Dallas Goedert out, that's the frustrating part, Ryan. AJ Brown was my guy going into the season, and it's not worked out. So, I'm happy to advance the rate that I did with the AJ Brown exposure that I had.
Yeah, I think it's mostly a Jalen Hurts issue. I mean, I thought, and they came out throwing. Hurts has just been very inefficient. He's been up and down since the Super Bowl 2 years ago. One thing I'll say here is Pittsburgh, Washington, Dallas. Pittsburgh's a pretty tough matchup for anyone, but Washington and Dallas, if they're going to go anywhere, they have to get this passing game going. They've already locked up the division, He's going to have a monster game or two in the fantasy playoffs, to the point where, like, if I see him on the opposing team, I'm like, that doesn't make me happy. And if I have him in a big tournament, I'm thrilled, that you got him through. So, little concern this week against the Steelers, but I'm going to play him in DFS in each of the next 3 weeks.
You love to hear it. Start your AJ Browns. Do not be afraid. Fire them up. And you know what else we're going to fire up? We're going to fire up Fast Draft Fantasy. So check out Fast Draft.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him. And the beauty is you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests, and our best ball contest for 2025 are coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. and you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is Podfather.
Yes, check out fastdraft.app. Use promo code STACK for 100% deposit match up to $25. They filled just about all of last week's. There was a little bit of overlay. So check it out, fastdraft.app. We'll also have a Fast Draft Fantasy YouTube channel. And I talked for it was a 10-minute video. I went through some of the best values in the ADP streets on Fast Draft. We identified that Breece Hall was not going to play. I said there was some leverage on the field with Isaiah Davis, especially given the projections team. So those who don't know, I work on the projections team behind the scenes for Player Profiler. And one of the things that we looked at was expert consensus rankings versus our projections. The expert consensus rankings for Isaiah Davis on Fantasy Pros, running back 62. We projected him as running back 29. And this week, I was very confident in Isaiah Davis, given the route running. Like, that was the big argument, was Breece Hall was getting 30% plus target share. And if Isaiah Davis is getting the routes, he's getting the targets, Aaron Rodgers is going to get in the ball. He got the touchdown too, Ryan. So that worked out very well. We put that out. And also, I talked about Kendre Miller as a leverage play, a late round leverage play. Not much exposure, so he fell in the end zone as well. Had a nice little rush for 8 yards. Looked good on that, and I think he's going to continue to get volume. So check out Fast Draft Fantasy YouTube channel as well. I'm going to be putting out some weekly content as these contests come out.
I love Fast Draft, man. I'm going to say this. I think the Giants game against the Ravens, I think the Ravens are going to hang an absurd amount of points. Everyone's going to be on Lamar. Everyone's going to be on Derrick Henry. I'm going to you're going to have to take Zay Flowers around early if you're in a draft with me.
You loved it. You love to hear it. You love to see it. So a couple players that have disappointed in the second round, just, we'll mention them briefly. Drake London, 13%. It was not what we were hoping we were hoping that Drake London would turn to Justin Jefferson 2.0, with Kirk Cousins, dome offense, and it didn't pan out. So maybe looking to 2025, is Drake London like a 4th round pick, a 3rd round pick? Is that too far down? What's the vibe for Drake London and this Atlanta Falcons offense?
That's interesting. I have a feeling he'll be like a 2-3 turn pick, probably, with Michael Penix most likely taking over. If he goes in the 4th round, I'm going to be taking him all the time, so I hope that happens. But I would guess a 2-3 turn pick in most competitive leagues. Maybe in season long he'll slide a little bit.
Deebo Samuel also massively disappointing right now. The tough thing is you draft Deebo usually in the early 2nd round, and now there's no Brandon Ayuk. Ryan, there's no Brandon Ayuk. And Deebo Samuel has put up wide receiver 62, 71, 94, and 55 over the last 4 weeks. What's wrong with San Francisco / Deebo Samuel?
I mean, it's a great question. It's he doesn't look like the same player, man. Just I said this last week. He's either playing hurt or he's fallen off the talent cliff. So that said, we talk about this we've talked about this a few times. Every year there's a few guys that bomb during the regular season and then go on a tear during the fantasy playoffs. He's at least in play for that. So if you have him, you're obviously concerned with the floor, but I think, like you said with CeeDee Lamb, he's still a flex option. You're just not super confident in him week to week at this point.
Okay, Deebo Samuel or Jordan Addison?
I would play Jordan Addison.
That's how I would go too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting looking, yes, at like the individual game logs, but also season logs. In 2019, Deebo finished as a top 36 wide receiver as a rookie. Pretty good. The following year, 96th. The following year, 3rd. The following year, 40th. The following year, 15th. Following year, this year, 48th right now among wide receivers in full PPR total points. Do you believe in that cyclical nature, or is it just so happenstance that Deebo Samuel is this oscillating, like sinusoidal player from his career so far?
You and your mathematical SAT words. I mean, he's very unique. Like, he's one of the best yak players ever. Like, how many wide receivers could you literally stick at running back and give 12 carries to? So I do think, and another thing too, I don't think he'd work like he has in every NFL city. I think a lot of it's, his coaching staff, and yeah. So I think it does make sense, the up and downs with his career.
We'll keep fast forwarding to the 3rd round. Derrick Henry, 35% advance rate. He was one of the players I was touting at the beginning of the year. Billy Muzio was very high on. Obviously, you drafted him in many spots. So Derrick Henry, the big dog, 30 years old, over 1,400 rushing yards on the season. He's on pace to obliterate a career high in yards per carry. Still getting a couple dump offs in the passing game. But running back too, there's no reason to not play Derrick Henry, right?
Yeah, you gotta. Yeah, that's, unless he's hurt, you gotta just. Yeah, that's a non-decision. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the Giants, Pittsburgh, Houston. I mean, last time Derrick Henry played Pittsburgh, though, 49% of snaps, 13 for 65. And that was the game they lost, right? The Ravens lost that game.
Yes.
It was interesting looking at like the career splits of games where Derrick Henry played well and not in games where his team won or lost, like the game script dependent. But looking at the final 3 weeks, like they're gonna roll the Giants. So big game in store for the big dog. But is this also the point where, okay, I know this is on the minds of like the micro edges, Ryan, but maybe this is something that's on other people's minds as well. When NFL teams get to enormous leads, or they face an opponent that they know they can handle pretty well, are we in any danger of Justice Hill getting just a little bit more than what we're comfortable with?
Yeah, this week especially, like, if, I think the Ravens are going to come out throwing personally, but if, say, the Ravens are up 21-0 and Derrick Henry hasn't scored, I think there's a very real path to him having like 60 yards rushing and nothing else. So I do think that's on the table. And like you said, if the Ravens are in any kind of shootout or playing from behind, or, have to deal with a pass rush, Justice Hill's gotten purposeful usage in the passing game. So I do think there's definitely a path to failure. But the thing with Henry too is, like, when he has big games, it's usually built off them sealing the edge on an outside run and him breaking one for 50 yards. So you gotta roll with it,
You got to roll with it. You got to roll with the big dog, no matter what. But it is in play, the Justice Hill. No touchdowns in the last 2 games for the big dog. Micro things, not
Sure.
red flags at all.
Yeah.
As we look through like the rest of the 3rd round, Michael Pittman Jr., the Indianapolis Colts overall were disappointing. You had a 10% advance rate for Jonathan Taylor in Best Ball Mania, 9% advance rate for Michael Pittman. Is there hope for the Colts to bring you fantasy goodness? Like, yes, the volume percentage wise is usually there for Michael Pittman, but Josh Downs is expected back this week. And we know what type of what accuracy Anthony Richardson has. So the concerns exist for a Michael Pittman to be a bench. And we've talked about that before, but with Downs back especially, he's almost a must bench at this point, right?
Yeah, I would definitely bet him against Denver in the overwhelming majority of situations. Tennessee and the Giants, I think it's a little bit more of, maybe it's a flex option. Depends on your roster. But even still, I've always thought this was going to be Jonathan Taylor time. The Colts are still in the playoff mix, so it's not like they're going to be trying to get anyone the ball or anything like that. They're going to be doing everything in their power to grind every edge they have. So I don't think that edge is Anthony Richardson throwing with any kind of volume. So yeah, I'm benching him in most situations.
But are you benching the Chiefs? Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco. We know what the upside could be for Mahomes, but he had one touchdown against the Chargers. We've seen outside the top 15 performances pretty consistently for Mahomes this season. Pacheco's been siphoned off a little bit by Kareem Hunt still. Like, they're still giving Hunt a little bit of run. How confident do you have? How confident are you in the Kansas City Chiefs as fantasy playoff gold?
Gold, not very at all. I mean, at Cleveland specifically, like that could be the Browns' pass defense has been all over the road last year. Last year they were winning games on their own, throughout the season. This year it's most of the times they've been a little bit vulnerable. I mean, they let Bo Nix shred them. Sometimes they play up. So I don't. Xavier Worthy's definitely not someone that I would plug and play. Like, he's a matchup space guy. I'd probably play him against Houston. Depends on your options with the other two. Hopkins, I probably play in most situations, but again, depends on your roster. Pacheco, I'm going to roll with though. I am.
Yeah, we could get a lot of fantasy goodness from Isaiah Pacheco rolling there. Looking across the board here, Travis Etienne. We got to have a come to Jesus moment about Travis Etienne, right? This is a player that was drafted in the 4th round. We expected him to get a lot of volume, but Doug Peterson is a lame duck coach, right? It's pretty safe to say he's out at the end of the year. Tank Bigsby has looked dynamic. He's looked like a different back compared to last year, night and day. Like, Tank Bigsby, by most efficiency metrics in 2023, was the worst running back in the NFL. And now he's the lead back for the Jaguars. And Etienne has been relegated to mostly a satellite back, like catching passes out of the backfield, running the routes. Bigsby's not much of that type of player. Like, is Etienne a flex consideration even at this point? How are you approaching Etienne if you've made it to the fantasy playoffs?
In my very tight player pool last week, I had Etienne, and let's just say I learned my lesson. I wouldn't play him if you have any real option. Like, I wouldn't even consider playing Etienne at this point. Wouldn't even consider it.
What a condemnation! What a condemnation! Let's flip the switch to Amari Cooper, because we saw what Buffalo was able to do. They were able to get in a massive shootout with the Rams. Amari Cooper, 14 targets, 95 yards, both season highs, but only played 53% of snaps, Ryan. He's still not a full-time player for this Bills team. Unfortunately, we haven't seen him take that next step since the trade. Yet we've seen 2 top 24 performances in 5 games for Amari Cooper, and then they get Detroit, which might be a good matchup, New England, which could fall one of 2 ways. They don't need the passing game, and therefore Amari Cooper irrelevant. And then the Jets we've seen like shredded before. Is there optimism of plugging in Amari Cooper as a flex play during the fantasy playoffs?
Yeah, I'm playing him against Detroit. A big game was there last week. He definitely had like 100 yards, 2 touchdowns usage on the table last week. I think that's possible, at least in Detroit. Like you said, with New England, maybe that game's 27-3 at halftime. That's on the table. So tepid there. Same tepid with the Jets too. So locking them in against the Lions, flex play consideration land for Patriots and Jets.
Yeah, lots of fun for Amari Cooper. I mean, remember last year, it was the 50 burger for Amari Cooper in the fantasy playoffs. Very, very nice. We know that is still within the range of outcomes. We saw a 24-point performance in week 3 against your beloved or not so beloved New York Giants. Sorry, Ryan. You just salt in the wound.
I mean, it's already over. It's been long over, so there's no way you can hurt me anymore with that.
Okay, Ryan. I'm the resident Green Bay fan. We're gonna pick at the Green Bay wide receivers here a little bit. Romeo Doubs questionable going into week 15. He didn't play the last couple weeks. Christian Watson, obviously has had his big ups and downs. Jaden Reed has had a lot of downs lately. In fact, Jaden Reed, 0 receptions in the week 14 contest against the Detroit Lions. So how are you handling the Green Bay Packers wide receivers? Because they've been all over the place. Is this just you drafted them in best ball, you're not really putting them in a flex play in standard leagues? Like, is there one that you have confidence in?
It's tough. Like, if I need upside, I'm playing Christian Watson against the Saints and the Vikings a little bit more, a little bit more tepid against Seattle. The thing with Jaden Reed, and like, this is, if I have one hole in my game and like in this area we're talking about, it's that I can get caught up in what should be sometimes. And Jaden Reed's usage is one of those things where it's like, I don't really understand it, even though I actually think Matt LaFleur is having his best year as a coach. But I would probably play him anyway, just because things should be a little different on that front. Giving someone else advice, he's an upside play with a floor of, one catch for 11 yards, essentially.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. Tough. And that's just with Tucker Kraft there. Like, Luke Musgrave, all offseason, I was worried about Jaden Reed because of, the 2 tight end sets that they wanted to run. But, Luke Musgrave hasn't been there, and we're still not getting consistent production from Jaden Reed. So what do we know? What do we know? All right, we'll stay in division, Ryan. The Chicago Bears have had a lot of turnover over the course of the season. Offensive coordinator shifts, coaching shifts. Surprised that Ryan Poles, if it wasn't for that Caleb Williams trade, the DJ Moore trade, like, maybe we'd be talking about Ryan Poles, the bust GM. But he pulled that off, was able to get Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. We'll talk about both players because it seems like they're interconnected. How confident are you starting Williams? Because he's played very well as of late. And Rome Odunze, who was very hot week 14, 4 for 42, 2 tutties. He's had 7 straight games of at least 5 targets. So he's getting the targets. What's the barometer of confidence for Williams and Odunze?
At Minnesota, I think Williams is he's very low downside. Chicago was a disaster in San Francisco last week. There's been so much, organizational dysfunction that's become concerning. And we talked about this last week. Thomas Brown moving into, you're the quarterback's coach. Now you're the play caller. You're excelling there. Now you're the head coach. Like, that is a lot, even for a guy who actually deserves that spot. But I'm a little tepid against the Vikings because of the pass rush and it being in Minnesota. I think Williams still has great upside, but I'm a little afraid of the floor. Like him against the Lions in week 16. I'm, in the overwhelming majority of scenarios where I have Caleb Williams, I'm playing him in that matchup. Seattle's a bit, I don't have a strong stance with that yet. Seattle's defense has been driving most of their success, so I'm thinking I probably stay away if I can, but I'm not going to outright rule it out. With Odunze, I like him against the Vikings and the Lions.
And then fade against Seattle week 17.
Yeah, they have big corners, so I don't really think he's the guy against them.
Yeah, Witherspoon is there, right? And Reek Woolen also tough. All right, we have a lot more to dive into. A couple flex plays, some big time early round selections that have paid off or not that Ryan and I have been discussing. If you got questions in the chat, we're going to answer those at the end of the show. Before we do, we have a word from Matt Kelly about Player Profiler.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free, and one of our key missions is to make as much statistics and information and deep analysis available on PlayerProfiler.com for free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In package to continue to make all this possible. If you can't do All In, that's okay. We have a draft kit. Or you can just subscribe to the player rankings. Those now include tight end premium FFPC ranks. Our brand new data analysis package will blow your hair back. And of course, there's our Dynasty Deluxe and our DFS Dominator. Take a moment, check out our premium services to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.
That's right. Check out all the things on Player Profiler. We've got rest of season rankings for you, the DFS Dominator. Of course, check out fastdraft.app. Use promo code STACK for 100% deposit match up to $25. Ryan, I'm reflecting on some of the highest rostered players or drafted players in my portfolio. And, 3 stick out as eyesores, just terrible picks. And, I'm reflecting on it. It hurts my soul. And it makes me question how good of a season would I have had with just a moderate advance rate, like an average advance rate, maybe above average, whatever, close. Like if I wouldn't have drafted 25% of Hollywood Brown, if I didn't draft 25% of Jonathan Brooks, if I didn't have 33% exposure to Kendra Miller, like I thought that those prices were cheap enough for those players wherever I was drafting them, at certain points, throughout the offseason. Trying to strike the right price, but they still didn't advance well, Ryan. So part of me is reflecting on how big of a season would I have had I not whiffed on in particular those players.
I have thoughts. I love these 3. I'm going to add one too. Hollywood Brown, you weren't wrong on, dude. He got hurt. That's not your fault. The ceiling was I wouldn't, I'm very big on auditing what I've done. I wouldn't fault you at all for that. Jonathan Brooks, I've been a little hard on myself for that too, because the path to him not playing for a long time was there, Same with Blake Corum, he was an injury away running back. Kyron Williams did enough.
Oh,
And
I had lots of Blake Corum too. Yeah.
I even said this. Kyron Williams did enough last year where he wasn't going to lose his job. But I do think the thing is, if Williams went down, I think Blake Corum's like a lock and load. Start him every week right now. And who was the other one? Kendre Miller. Listen, here's the thing with that. What you didn't see is that Dennis Allen is an idiot. That's the
logical coaching fallacy, right? That's a classic one, classic blunder that I fell into.
I mean, you basically wanted to handcuff or get a premium stash behind Alvin Kamara, who's a great player still, but an aging running back on a mediocre to bad team. I have zero problem with that too, man.
Well, especially round 14, Kendre. Yeah. But maybe because of my high exposure to him, that makes me different in the playoffs. If he takes over, get some run.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Dennis Allen's not there anymore, Ryan.
Yeah, thankfully. Hopefully we never get to see that again.
Disaster zone. Yeah, just reflecting on those types of things. I don't know if I would shift, to one of the things that, because of my role as those who don't know, my day job is a school administrator. I'm a principal at a school, and I love my job. I work very hard at it. And that's something that's very much on my mind. And there's a lot of mission, a mission side to that. And I also have, 5 kids at home, take care of my family. Those types of things are very, very important to me. And fantasy is an important part as well, because of the content and the relationships and the fun that it all encompasses, the strategy, everything. My math brain is turned on by it. But I'm mostly relegated to drafting slow drafts because I don't have the time always to sit down and do a 40-minute draft. I don't have the time to commit to 150 of these 18 round drafts where, like, if a guy auto picks, it doesn't auto pick the rest of the way. Like, Ryan, it's a tough spot. So that's one of the reasons why, I'm anticipating Fast Draft will make its way through, and we'll be able to do some best ball drafts and different things. But it's difficult when you're drafting, and maybe I auto drafted a couple of those players too if they fell in ADP on the site. And so that's something that's very much on my mind in terms of not just inventorying like my takes of Kendre Miller, Jonathan Brooks, but also because I had them rated so high. If I auto picked, then it would pick them anyways, given my life situation. So, partly inventorying like what volume can I play at, or maybe I need to be more strategic about drafting in like a live draft instead of slow draft. So just things to think about in inventorying for next year.
Yeah, agreed, man. I mean, roster construction is a big piece of the puzzle. And like one thing that I'll always say too is like back to your Kendre Miller thing. I'm very comfortable taking shots on guys late that have a path to zero. That's fine with me because when they hit, they hit. And, like Sam Darnold, for instance, late in drafts and best ball drafts, like the path to there was zero, him getting benched early in the year. But
yes,
if it hits, it hits, so I don't. Now with the Brooks thing again, I'm gonna go back to the well on that myself because I wanted shares of it, and there was a path to that being a disaster. So just go back and look at why you were wrong, and that's what it boils down to is why were you wrong.
But a player I was not wrong about, Ryan, and I drafted a lot of, was Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, 26% advance rate for that player. He was I didn't even understand his ADP. We were talking like 6th round Joe Mixon. It made no sense. He was going to get the volume. Dameon Pierce is not the guy. They went out. Okay, they traded like a 7th round pick for him. But we knew what pedigree type of running back Joe Mixon was. So, these types of big hits offset, sometimes these big misses as well. That help buoy up the advance rates. And Joe Mixon has been crushing this season. So we'll continue to ride the Joe Mixon train. There's no reason to not. He's a set and forget RB1.
Yeah, 100% agree. I overexposed on him too. You don't even think about sitting him.
No. No, we're not doing that. One of the players that was later in drafts, you were flipping a coin ultimately between Justin Fields, Drake May, and Bryce Young. And it's actually Drake May who had the lowest of the 3 advance rates, despite Justin Fields not playing for the majority of the season and Bryce Young getting benched for a few weeks and still not putting up like massive games.
Yeah.
But looking to 2025, Drake May is one of those quarterbacks that I want to be overexposed to. Like, I think the New England goes out, gets a wide receiver. They address some of these things in the offseason. And we saw what a floor is for Drake May. I think we can see some more ceiling games in 2025.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward, man. I mean, he's better than I thought he was. I still don't quite see Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen's one of the 10 best quarterbacks ever. I'm not quite there, but yeah, if he went in the 4th, 5th round next year, it really wouldn't surprise me, honestly.
4th, 5th round.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Wow.
Yeah, it's something to think about, isn't it? Like, if he goes in round 8, I'm going to have quite a bit of him, but I could see him going quite high.
You think Drake May gets that high?
I think he could, man. Like, I think all of them are going to be high. Where's Jaden Daniels going to go? Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson are going to go in the same round, probably.
Yeah, they're probably round 3, like round 3, 4.
And I
don't think Drake May gets that high.
You don't think so? I hope not.
No.
I hope. Where do you think he goes?
Drake May, he will probably be relegated to the Trevor Lawrence 2 level. So like round 9, 10, 11. I think he'll be. So. I think that's where he's going to be. Yeah, Drake May.
I hope so. I'm going to have a ton of them if he's in that range. A ton of them. Where do you think Caleb Williams is going to go?
The name value is going to keep him up there. I think he'll be with the Joe Burrow. So like round 6-ish, round 7.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Around there is what I'm thinking.
Right.
And he's going to be ahead of Drake May.
Yeah.
You know,
And he should be. He should be.
But like, there may be some hype for Drake May that we'll have to monitor. May has finished, with 3 top 10 finishes since he started. He's gotten the rushing yards you mentioned, so the touchdowns could be there. But the way too early best ball drafts, I think, is where I want to be more overexposed to like that type of ADP for May.
That's honestly, I hope you're right, dude. I'm gonna have a ton of them if he's around there. I am.
Yeah. That's how I'm like, I haven't done my way too early 2025 ranks, but
it's December.
Sure, but like we're also degenerates, like
clearly.
Like Drake May or Dak Prescott.
Drake May for me. Auto, yeah.
Interesting.
Unless the Cowboys get a second receiver,
but they've been rumored to. Brandon Cooks is
been.
Gone. Jalen Tolbert is a nothing burger. Kevontae Turpin, they haven't unlocked him as a receiver yet. So
no. He's
right?
a great player, but as far as an offensive player, he's essentially Devin Hester. Like, you get him a bubble screen every once in a while, he'll break it, but he's not going to command 120 targets or anything like that ever.
No. One of the players that I think we should talk about, Ryan, before we answer questions. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them here as we close out the show. Make sure you're following Ryan at Ryan Reynolds NFL on X. Make sure you're following me at FF Stalder. Go download the fantasy Fast Draft Fantasy app at fastdraft.app. Use promo code STACK for 100% deposit match up to $25. They've got the Flex 6 Frenzy drafts available now for Week 15 DFS. It's a lot of fun. Yes, one player we need to talk about before we leave for tonight. It was the fringe player, like tier drop player, wide receiver, Courtland Sutton. Essentially, if you went wide running back heavy at the beginning of drafts, you were banking on players like Courtland Sutton to lift you. And he did. Courtland Sutton, a 29% advance rate, wild stuff that he was. All of the questions were answered. Bo Nix, could he get it downfield to Courtland Sutton? The answer is yes. Can he get it in the red zone, in the end zone? The answer is yes. He got touchdowns downfield, lots of PPR, commanded the targets. There's no question Courtland Sutton, the wide receiver, one. Now that we know what Bo Nix is, Ryan, where does Courtland Sutton go in 2025?
It's a great question. I'm going to actually start with your comment on AJ Brown earlier. 2 years ago, Drake London broke the target share stat for me. I love that stat, but like you said, 33% of nothing's a problem. Over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games, Courtland Sutton has at least 8 targets and as many as 11 every week. So, I mean, 3rd, 4th round turn, maybe mid 4th round. I think that's legitimately on the table. I do.
Okay, Bo Nix or Drake May?
Drake May.
Ooh, okay.
Bo Nix I watch Bo Nix every week. What Sean Payton's getting out of him is remarkable, but it's.
Is it Brock Purdy? Is he squeezing him like Shanahan squeezes Brock Purdy?
He's better than Brock Purdy, but that's a good parallel. I don't think this is happening in most NFL cities. So yes, I like that.
All right. Well, interesting. Yes, Sutton was a round 8 selection, back end of the 8th round in the 2024 drafts. Ryan projects about round 4 for 2025 drafts. All right, we're going to answer your questions rapid fire. 3/U0026 Downs on the X machine. Week 15 ranks for Jameis A. Rich or Daniels.
Daniels, Jameis, A. Rich. I don't like the Denver matchup for Richardson.
Same. Baker or Winston and AJ Brown or London.
I think I'm going to go Baker, and I'm definitely going to go AJ Brown.
Baker and AJ Brown as well. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Smash the like button, guys. Smash the subscribe button here at Player Profiler. Smash it. Smash it. Hit the button. Hit multiple buttons. You're just watching the content for free. All you can do is, this is it. Smash the subscribe. Smash the like. All right. Let's answer Stafford versus the 49ers or Jameis versus the Chiefs.
Stafford.
Yeah, give me Stafford. Yeah. Okay. I'm in a 16-team PPR league. Should I start Etienne, McCormick, or Reed? We're starting Etienne. Like, I know that we love the story of undrafted free agent Sincere McCormick, who has usurped both Zamir White and Alexander Madison and Amir Abdullah in the Las Vegas Raiders backfield in a lost season. I get it. Look, we love it. And, you probably got a rush when you got Sincere McCormick off of waivers. You probably felt like, something's tingly inside your body when Sincere McCormick hit your roster at 3:05 a.m. Eastern time. But
wow.
Tell me I'm wrong. RJJ.
Listen, I love the Sincere McCormick. We're going to call it a rampage, but I loved it.
Fantastic. Yes, you're starting HN. You're not getting cute. Yeah, fire him up. Do you expect anything this week from Tim Patrick, or was he fool's gold?
That's a great question. I'm going to go closer to fool's gold than like anything that I'm going to play. Yeah.
I think so too, but he's gotten meaningful targets.
Exactly. Yeah.
He is a big bodied, like, to contrast, like Jameson Williams' speed and finesse and win downfield. Tim Patrick is going to be, he's essentially getting a lot of like the Sam Laporta big boy targets in the middle of the field. He is like a blocking wide receiver. He's buying in. He's in his 30s, coming off of multiple big major knee injuries. He's got nothing else to play for except a championship. Like he is bought into the dog narrative here in Detroit. So yeah, do you expect anything? I think it's more fool's gold, but desperation flex in large leagues is how I'd approach it.
Agreed. I mean, he's a guy where when he gets his targets, it's because that's where the defense allows. Yeah. Agreed, Brad.
All right. Brad Northcutt, shout out to you. Great name, great first name. FFPC Fantasy Pros Tourney, need 2 running backs and maybe 1 flex. Chase Brown, Zach Charbonnet, Tony Pollard, James Cook, Tyron Tracy. I'm flexing McLaurin and McConkey if he's healthy. You're playing Chase Brown. There's no way you're moving off Chase Brown. Kenneth Walker's not expected to play, and I don't think you move away from Zach Charbonnet. Zach Charbonnet, I think, is a fire-up RB1, and Tony Pollard. That's how I would have it, is those 3. McLaurin, McConkey, fine. Yeah.
That's my same thought, too. It actually kind of kills me not playing James Cook. I think I might go James Cook over Charbonnet maybe, but like that would be my decision. I would play Pollard and Chase Brown.
All right, last question of the night. JJ McCarthy, ADP next year. Ryan, I think he lands in like round 12 to 15, like somewhere in that range. It doesn't matter at that point. Like ultimately you're picking the same guy. But that's where I think he ends up landing, barring any news.
That's another great question. My immediate instinct was I hope it's round 14, 15. So I'm in the same range as you, Brad.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, y'all. It's been a lot of fun talking draft with you, talking fantasy playoffs with you. Ryan, follow Ryan at Ryan Reynolds NFL. Follow me at FF Stalder. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. Until next time, everybody, good luck in the fantasy football playoffs.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.